Hello, and this is your host, Richard G. Medlock, and welcome to a special edition of the Medlock Post Radio Show. This is our special 4th of July edition. Happy 4th, happy birthday, America, Independence Day. This is a time that we should be celebrating. It really should be. This is the program where we educate, entertain, enlighten, and empower. This episode, again, is entitled the Special 4th of July Edition. We're going to go back in history. We're going to go over some things, some history of the country, and some things you've probably heard, some things you probably haven't heard, or you heard it a long time ago and forgot about. And so we're going to do that. And I just, I wish we could do this like once a month. In our schools, in our homes, just sit down and talk about America and the greatness of America and the challenges that it faced and have overcome and are still facing challenges. Some we have brought on ourselves and others brought on from other countries or other organizations. But America is still standing 246 years after the Declaration of Independence was declared. Now, technically, the Declaration of Independence was signed on July 2nd. They didn't deliver it to the British governor until July 4th. That's why it's dated July 4th. But before we get to that, let me go back to 1776. And this is kind of the straw that broke the colonists back a little bit. And it was the Stamp Act. Now, we hear a lot about the Stamp Act, but there are a whole lot of other things going on prior to this. In 1760, the state of Massachusetts, I think it was Massachusetts, wrote a Declaration of Independence to break away from the British Empire. So it's not a new subject. It's being talked about. But in the colonies, in 1765, because of the Stamp Act, John Adams wrote what's called Braintree Instructions of 1765 and held that Parliament's new taxes, referring to the Stamp Act of 1765, that held the Parliament's new taxes were an unconstitutional innovation. Now, where have we heard that word unconstitutional before? They were well aware of the British documents of the Magna Carta of 1215, the Petition of Right, 1628, and the Bill of Rights in 1689. So there was some precedent here that John Adams was going on. The controversy surrounding the Stamp Act is very instructive to understand how this break from the British Empire started. And it designed as a revenue measure from the British government. The act required that a wide variety of paper products of the colonies, such as legal deeds to newspapers, or to a tavern's license, or to wills, and things like that, bear revenue stamps. Well, the revenue stamps you have to pay for. From the American or the colonist point of view, such taxation without consent was an intolerable novelty. And among the great heroes of the Stamp Act crisis was Virginia's Patrick Henry. Now, I'm going to have to add here that I am related to Patrick Henry. He is a cousin through my mother's line. And he proposed to the colony's legislature what was called the Virginia Resolves, a list of 7 resolutions outlining the colonial position on the Stamp Act. So let's go through those 7. They're kind of interesting. The first 2 were kind of tame enough, insisting the colonists possessed all the rights of Englishmen. Okay, if we're a British colony, then we should have all the rights of people that live in England. And that wasn't happening. The third proclaimed the principle of colonial self-taxation as essential to the British Constitution. Right? The fourth contended that the colony had the right in its eternal manners to be governed solely by laws passed by its own legislature and approved by the royal governor. Well, that sounds kind of reasonable, doesn't it? The fifth was a more confrontational way of wording the third, stating that the General Assembly of this colony had the only and sole exclusive right and power to lay taxes and impositions upon the inhabitants of this colony, and that any attempt to repose such power elsewhere must undermine both colonial and British freedom. Kind of getting contentious here, aren't we, Patrick Henry? All righty. The sixth simply drew the logical conclusion of the fourth, arguing that the colonies were not required to obey laws that had not been approved by their own legislature. Now that makes sense, right? We're going to make our own laws, so we don't have to obey anything else. Well, that included the Stamp Act at this point. The seventh ended the resolve on a pretty dramatic note. Anyone who denied the principle that the colonies were subject only to legislation passed by their legislators were a traitor to Virginia. Whoa. So, okay, if you don't swear allegiance to the Virginia colony and its governmental body, then you are a traitor, and it didn't say what would happen, but normally back then, traitors were either hung or shot or prisoned for life or something like that. So these things, 5 of these were passed by the legislature and began the contention between the colonies and the British Empire. So this led up to 1776 and the writing of the Declaration of Independence. I thought about reading from the Declaration today, but we've done that in the past, and you can pick it up and read it yourself. And I've suggested that, if you haven't done it lately, to do that. On July 3rd, 1776, John Adams wrote a letter to his wife, Abigail. And this is a pretty popular letter. I'm sure they don't teach it in the schools. But anyway, is about how succeeding generations should celebrate the Declaration of Independence. Quote, "It ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, with shows, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations from one end of this continent to the other, from this time forward, forevermore. I am well aware of the toll and blood and treasure that it will cost us to maintain this declaration and support and defend these states. Yet through all the gloom, I can see the rays of ravishing light and glory. I can see that the end is more than worth all the means." Unquote. that is a powerful statement from a patriot now. He's now a patriot that is willing to sacrifice all that he has. And the other 55 men that signed the Declaration put everything, their lives, their fortunes, everything on the line. And they were, like he says in here, well aware of the toil and blood and treasure it will cost us to maintain this declaration. I think it's quite interesting that he does put the word guns in here. So, bear arms. But anyway, great letter. You can read and hear the enthusiasm. Hear it in this letter. Short, one paragraph, but just lays the groundwork for what was to happen. And of course, the Declaration of Independence was adopted on July 4th, effectively absolving the colonists' allegiance to the British Empire. And at that time, a young nation embarked on a great experiment, self-government under law. That was a very novel thought at the time. There was no other nation on earth that had that. There's several things I want to read today. And those that have been listening to my podcast so far, those my friends and people that know me, know that I am extremely patriotic. I love this country. I love America. I respect and honor those in the past that sacrificed and even gave their lives so that America can still be standing and we have the freedoms that we have. And I will hold that until the day I die. And if I have to fight for these freedoms in the future, then so be it. But I love this country. I love the people. With all the challenges we have, I do. I love the Constitution. It's still good. It's just our government. John Mitchum wrote a poem, and most of you might recognize this because there's a video with John Wayne that reads this poem. But I want to read it. And you're saying, why don't you play John Wayne's? Well, I don't have all that set up to play copyrighted things yet. It's coming. America, why I love her. You ask me why I love her. Well, give me time and I'll explain. Have you seen a Kansas sunset or an Arizona rain? Have you drifted on a bayou down Louisiana way? Have you watched the cold fog drifting over San Francisco Bay? Have you heard a bobwhite calling in the Carolina pines? Or heard the bellow of a diesel at the Appalachia mines? Does the call of Niagara thrill you when you hear her waters roar? Do you look with awe and wonder at her Massachusetts shore, where men who braved a hard new world first stepped on Plymouth Rock? And do you think of them when you stroll along a New York City dock? Have you seen a snowflake drifting in the Rockies way up high? Have you seen the sun come blazing down from a bright Nevada sky? Do you hail to the Columbia as she rushes to the sea? Or bow your head at Gettysburg at our struggle to be free? Have you seen the mighty Tetons? Have you watched an eagle soar? Have you seen the Mississippi roll along Missouri's shore? Have you felt the chill at Michigan when on a winter's day her waters rage along the shore in thunderous display? Does the word aloha make you warm? Do you share in disbelief when you see the surf come roaring in at Waimea Bay Reef? From Alaska's cold to the Everglades, from the Rio Grande to Maine, my heart cries out, my pulse runs fast at the might of her domain. You ask me why I love her. I've a million reasons why. My beautiful America, beneath God's wide, wide sky. John Mitchell. Why I love America. America, why I love you. All right. I hope that touches you. It's interesting as I go through that, and as many times as I hear John Wayne do it, most of these things I've seen. Kansas sunset, yeah. I used to live in Arizona, so I saw the rain. I've been on the bayou in Louisiana. I've been in San Francisco, up in one of the tall buildings when a fog drifted in. From the Carolinas, I've heard the Bob White. Not heard of diesel in the Appalachian mines, but from other things. Never been to Niagara, Massachusetts, or Plymouth Rock. New York City dock, I've been to LaGuardia, and that's it. I've been to the Rockies, Nevada sky. I've seen the Columbia. I've been to Gettysburg, the Tetons, the Mississippi. I've been on Lake Michigan in the winter. My uncle took me there once. It was 20 below. And yeah, not Hawaii or Alaska. I've been to the Everglades. And when you look at the beauty of America, ladies and gentlemen, it's just a wonder, because wherever you go in America, wherever you go, there is natural beauty. And I grew up in the South, and then I went west to go to school and stayed out there working for a while, and then came back to the Southeast. And I talk to people, oh, I live in Arizona. Oh, that's just desert out there. I said, have you ever seen a desert blooming in the springtime? And going out into the desert and into the mountains and things out there and looking for the beauty, that's what it's all about. You find the beauty. I just love it. All right, let's move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance, a little history. I learned some things. I found this the other day. The Pledge of Allegiance was written in August 1892. And it was written by Francis Bellamy. He lived from 1855 to 1931. And he was a socialist minister. And it was originally published in the Youth's Companion on September 8, 1892. And Bellamy had hoped that the pledge could be used by citizens of any country. All right. So in its original form, this is what it read, quote, I pledge allegiance to my flag and the republic for which it stands, one nation indivisible with liberty and justice for all, unquote. So I can see where a lot of countries could use that, and they might change the word republic to something else. But anyway, so in 1923, and Francis Bellamy agreed to this, the words, the flag of the United States of America, were added. So now it reads, in 1923, quote, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, that was the first pledge as a young man that I pledged. And you're saying, boy, he's old. Well, I have some age on me. I was born when Harry Truman was president of the United States, but that doesn't mean anything. All right, but in 1954, in response to the communist threat of the times, which was big, we're going to do some programs on that, President Dwight D. Eisenhower encouraged Congress to add the words, under God, creating the 31-word pledge that we say today. Bellamy's daughter objected to this alteration, but her objections were not heard. So today it reads, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So under Section 4 of the Flag Code, it states, the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag, it goes through it, should be rendered by standing at attention, facing the flag with the right hand over the heart. When not in uniform, men should remove any non-religious headdress with their right hand and hold it at their left hand, and hold it at the left shoulder, or a hat, okay? The hand being over the heart. Persons in uniform should remain silent, face the flag, and render the military salute. The original Bellamy salute, described in 1892, the salute began with a military salute, and after reciting the words to the flag, the arms were extended toward the flag, or the arm, the right arm. All right. At a signal from the principal, the pupils in ordered ranks, hands to the side, face the flag. Another signal is given. Every pupil gives the flag the military salute, right hand lifted, palm down to a line where the forehead and close to it, standing thus, all repeated together. All right. Now, shortly after the pledge was begun with the right hand over the heart and reciting the flag, the arm was extended. In World War II, the salute too much resembled the Nazi salute, so it was changed to the right hand over the heart. Now, I'm sure you had figured that out. Little history here, folks. History of America. Things that have made us great. All right. I'm sure most of you have seen the video of Red Skelton explaining the Pledge of Allegiance. And again, I wish I could play it. But I'm going to just read it. And this is Red Skelton speaking. When I was a small boy in Vincennes, Indiana, I heard, I think, one of the most outstanding speeches I ever heard in my life. I think it compares with the Sermon on the Mount, Lincoln's Gettysburg's Address, and Socrates' speech to the students. We had just finished reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, and he, Mr. Laswell, the principal of Vincennes High School, called us all together, and he says, boys and girls, I have been listening to you recite the Pledge of Allegiance all semester, and it seems that it has become monotonous to you. Or could it be you do not understand the meaning of each word. If I may, I would like to recite the pledge and give you a definition of each word. I, me, an individual, a committee of one. Pledge, dedicate all my worldly good to give without self-pity. Allegiance, my love and my devotion. To the flag, our standard, Old Glory, a symbol of courage. And wherever she waves, there is respect, because your loyalty has given her a dignity that shouts, freedom is everybody's job. And the united, that means we have all come together. States, individual communities that have united into 48 great states. 48 individual communities with pride and dignity and purpose, all divided by imaginary boundaries, yet united to a common cause, and that's love of country, of America. And to the republic, a sovereign state in which power is invested into the representatives chosen by the people to govern, and the government is the people, and it's from the people to the leaders, not from the leaders to the people, for which it stands, one nation, meaning so blessed by God, under God, indivisible, incapable of being divided, with liberty, which is freedom, the right of power for one to live his own life without fears, threats, or any sort of retaliation, and justice, the principle and qualities of dealing fairly with others, for all. For all, that means, boys and girls, it's as much your country as it is mine. Now let me hear you recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since I was a small boy, 2 states have been added to our country, and 2 words have been added to the Pledge of Allegiance, under God. Wouldn't it be a pity if someone said, that is a prayer, and that should be eliminated from our schools, too? Red Skelton, I pledge the Pledge of Allegiance. Ladies and gentlemen, there is so much that we can learn about America. There is so much that we should understand and appreciate. And I'm just bringing up these things. I know a lot of you, again, you've heard them, but I hope it's putting a spark in you today about America and what it took to make this country and what it takes to keep it. Next, I'd like to do a little something by Johnny Cash. He was a great patriot. He did this as a song, and he also, it's a great poem, and in the song, the music is playing in the background, and he's reading the poem. And I'd like to read that to you, That Ragged Old Flag. And please listen to this. This is very touching too. I walked through a country courthouse square On a park bench, an old man was sitting there. I said, "Your old courthouse is kind of run down." He said, "Nah, it'll do for our little town." I said, "Your old flag is leaned a little bit, and that's a ragged old flag you got hanging on it." He said, "Have a seat," and I sat down. "Is this the first time you've been to our little town?" I said, "I think it is." He says, "I don't like to brag, but we're kind of proud of that rugged old flag. You see, we got a little hole in that flag there when Washington took it across the Delaware. And it got powder burned the night Francis Scott Key sat watching it, writing, say, can you see? It got a rip in New Orleans with Andrew Jackson tugging at its seams. And it almost fell at the Alamo beside the Texas flag. But she waved on, though. She got cut with a sword at Chancellorsville, and she got cut again at Shiloh Hill. There was Robert E. Lee and Beauregard and Bragg, and the south wind blew hard on that rugged old flag. On Flanders Field in World War I, she got a big hole from a Bertha gun. She turned blood red in World War II. She hung limp and low a time or two. She was in Korea, Vietnam. She went where she was sent by her Uncle Sam. She weighed from her ships upon the briny foam, and now they've about quit waving back here at home. In her own good land, here she's been abused. She's been burned, dishonored, denied, and refused. And the government for which she stands has been scandalized throughout the land. And she's getting threadbare and she's wearing thin, but she's in good shape for the shape she's in, 'cause she's been through the fire before, and I believe can take a whole lot more. So we raise her up every morning, and we bring her down slow every night. We don't let her touch the ground, and we fold her upright. On second thought, I do like to brag, 'cause I'm mighty proud of that ragged old flag. What a beautiful thought about our flag and what it means, what this country has gone through. I have some other things, but I'm going to skip. I'm going to stop there. I want to stop there. I just want to be this to be a tribute, a celebration of America, a celebration of the 4th of July, a celebration of our founding fathers, a celebration of those that have given their lives freely in war and other ways to keep freedom alive. I pay honor to my ancestors who served and fought. And from Patrick Henry on down the line, the service that was rendered in this country to make it free, to bring about this beautiful Constitution. And I hope that in some way that this spark can grow again in you as an American citizen to stand up proudly when the flag is coming by, to put your hand on your heart, to salute if you're in uniform, to say the Pledge of Allegiance with meaning and understanding what it means and what it represents. And when you hear the Star-Spangled Banner, you get tears in your eyes. And you stand and you honor those that it represents, that lie in graveyards in America and around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, may you have a happy 4th weekend, and may God bless America. This is Richard Medlock and the Medlock Post Radio Show.